I'm even going to try.
So welcome, Debra Buckner, our Pulaski County Treasurer. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Hey, there's nothing I'd rather do than talk to you, Claire.
Oh. Well, I can think of a few things, but thank you so much. You're very sweet. You're very sweet. So, you handle so much of what I do every single day and have for many years. So to bend your ear is just a joy today. So thank you for your time. So tell us all about real estate property taxes, Debra. How are our property taxes calculated? I think there's a lot of question around that. So how do we calculate our property taxes?
Well, first of all, it starts with the person in another elected office, and that's the assessor. Her job is to go to all the land in Pulaski County and find a value, a current value for real estate, be it commercial, business, personal homes, RVs, motorcycles, whatever. That's her stated duty, is to find the value. Once she does that, she's done. They take all those values and roll them over to our office, and we are the ones responsible for applying the appropriate millage. And they vary all over the county. Trust me, it's a juggle.
I bet.
For whatever the folks in that area have voted in for themselves to be taxed. So we have a value of a home, say it's $100,000, and we have a millage, and we apply that to, and then that comes up with the amount of taxable bill that comes on that house for that year. And obviously it's done annually because things change. And that gets you going on how it is. So what really matters to people, and so many people don't understand this, it is not the same in Wrightsville and Alexander and Kamak Village and Jacksonville and North Little Rock and on and on and on. We have 8 cities incorporated in Pulaski County. And then there's this whole donut of real estate all around the county that's unincorporated. And theirs is different in as well. On top of that, there's the school districts. So we have to overlay the school districts that are applicable to everybody, because those millages are impacted by who gets the school money, which is generally 75 to 80% of the taxes go to schools. And then on top of that, if they live in a community that has a homeowners association, say there's a park, swimming pool, maybe there's a sewer improvement district, those are not taxes, but they're actually fees that are added on the real estate because of where they live. So if you go 40 miles, you'll have a different one or none. So it's a combination of things that we have to assemble to come up with what someone's taxable taxation bill will be on their home. And then, if I could keep talking, we have in statute that everyone who has a homestead, i.e. I'm sitting in the home I own, we have by statute, a $375 tax credit. In other words, we reduce the amount of taxes that you have due based on this statute. And the state reimburses us for that shortfall from a sales tax that was passed 22 years ago. Also, if someone is 65 or older and it's their homestead, they can have their assessment frozen, not their taxes. Millages can change, homeowners can change, but the assessed value won't increase while they are in that domicile. So that also applies to disabled. Disabled veterans are 100% tax-free. So it's not a quick answer, but it's, I hope, a thorough and easy to understand answer.
It is a thorough answer, and it is easy for me to understand. Of course, I'm in this world a little bit, so I understand it probably a little bit more than most. So those here on the call, if you will, please type your questions in the chat and we'll make sure and get to them. And so there are a few things I want to focus on a little bit here, Debra. And, a few things that you touched on, that we do have the Homestead Tax Credit. and that you are able to have your assessment frozen. And those are a couple of things that people are not aware of. And I think
Yes.
it's very important. It's not something we advertise a lot.
Well, we do put it in our print material and we have it on the website, but there again, until it's you,
Right.
you know, it's the fine print kind of thing. I mean, we are so transparent, it's ridiculous. Our
Yeah.
website has more than anybody wants to know about taxes. It's a great resource we got pie charts with color that says, okay, if you live in Sherwood or if you live in, say, Alexander, you can see where all your tax money goes. I mean, we do disclose it. It's real sensitive to the area. But as far as for example, the homestead credit or the disabled veteran credit or the 65 frozen assessment credit, the challenge for folks, especially new homeowners, they have to ask for it.
Right.
We don't know it's a first time homeowner. We don't know your age. We're not allowed to have birthdays or social security numbers. So we don't know if you're 65 or 55 and just look old. We don't know. So the folks, unfortunately, and that's what you're doing here, is promoting the idea of education, which is, we're on that bandwagon for 22 years. Folks don't know to ask for it. They don't ask for it.
Right.
And so usually the second time they buy a home, or maybe somebody they know owns a home, and if they happen to read the insert, which is hot pink this year, our insert in our tax bills, they will notice it and call. We have live chat every day from 8:30 to 4. We have recorded messages that we make people laugh in case they get stuck on hold. But we've got nearly 400,000 customers in Pulaski County. If you think about the population, I've only got 57 employees. So there's a high ratio
Yeah.
of customers to people.
Yeah.
But we really do, we do outreach. We go to civic clubs and different places and put on PowerPoints and all that. But when it gets down to the couple buying their first home, my daughter's single, she bought her first home. And even my daughter was like, Mom, I don't understand all of this. And I was a first time home buyer once too. I get it. It is so overwhelming. And having a fantastic real estate agent, I always promote real estate agents because it's okay to buy direct from a seller. I mean, yeah, you may think you're saving a fee, but you don't learn anything. You're lost in all this.
Right.
That's where the professional agents and title companies, I mean, literally are a world of resources.
Yeah.
I hope that's helpful.
It is. So we do have a question. So have there been any resources or things passed that have been able to help people with their property taxes if they've been affected by the pandemic?
Actually, no. The answer is no. There are limited opportunities for deployed people. With the air base in Jacksonville, we have so many people that show up here. If they get deployed or injured or something, there's a little bit of a different thing. It's really specific. And we don't get much of that. So many times when someone is deployed, their spouse goes back home. They don't stay in Pulaski County. So we don't have that many people actually call about that. But there's not any forbearance on a mortgage. There was a lot of forbearance on rentals. But, if someone's got a mortgage company that's pulling their escrow and they're paying their investor back for the Ginnie Mae pool or Fannie Mae investment, there was no forbearance on that.
Yeah. And sometimes, we all get confused with taxes. There's so many. Property taxes are different than income taxes, that are different than sales taxes, that are different than personal property taxes, that, we all get confused of where we get relief and where we don't.
Well, and besides that, there's different date deadlines. There's different, in Arkansas, we are unique in the United States. We are the only state that taxes 1 year in arrears. And that throws many people. The tax bills that we have dropped this week to go out to all of our customers, they're our annual love letter.
Your love letter. Did
That's
you
what I
really
call it.
just call it the love letter?
Well, hey, as far as I'm concerned, if I get all this money in and I send it to Children's Hospital and to the schools, they love us. So it's love letters.
That is so true. I think and that's another perspective. We forget about where all of our taxes go.
Exactly, exactly. When we drop all of these bills, obviously we're flooded with phone calls, and we want people to call in, and everybody's situation is different. And that's one thing I can say about our customer service. We are rated extremely high. I don't get people calling and complaining. I get notes and letters and emails that say, Sally Jane stuck with me on my call until we got it resolved. So, my career before this was in banking, and we had amazing customer service training when I was a young lady. And so we converted that into government. We don't think of people as taxpayers. We think of people as our customers.
Yeah.
And that's a different parameter. That's a different thought process. We're not government as usual. We want people to feel like they've been heard and care. And genuinely, our people pay taxes too. I mean, we're all customers too. So we know what it's like to get. We don't do bureaucracy. We do customer service there.
There's two things I want to talk about, Deborah, and that is I want to talk about probate and taxes, and then I want to talk about buying property for back taxes.
Okay.
And so which one do you want to tackle first?
Let's do probate.
Okay, let's do probate. Right. And so everybody, first of all, for those who don't know, what is probate? And then tell us what we need to know about that with our taxes. How do we need to structure ourselves in order to, be prepared, and so that we don't necessarily, I don't want to say get around or loophole our taxes, but, how can we service those that we leave behind the best way?
It's a sensitive issue. When I came in office, I found that the local attorneys, for the most part, had for the previous 100 years, not realized, or even, I'll say, well, they were not mindful of the fact that when you're taxing a year in arrears, again, the bills I'm sending now were as of January 1 of 21. Well, we were all in COVID. I mean, my gosh, but when there is someone that passes away, and say, for example, if somebody passed away today, I'm their child, I'm going to take care of their taxes or their whatever. What you hope to avoid in the completely legitimate probate process is the length of delay that it takes to distribute assets. For an example, if a will hasn't been handled properly, it will go to probate. And if the heirs kind of don't know what to do, it becomes a legal kind of mess. And it's when someone's already in a grief or bereavement situation, this is the last thing they need to do. So what we hope for and what we do in our offices, we began many years ago, if we happen to hear about or learn that someone has passed, we look at their history. Do they have taxes owed? And if they do, we can file a claim in probate, just like an insurance claim, like they owe us $200. And then if it goes to probate, at least the judge and the lawyers and the family members will realize the family member may live in Detroit. They don't have these kind of taxes. They have no clue. And they want to do the right thing by the person that passed. So the clerk's office, Terry Hollingsworth, our Circuit County clerk, great lady, that's all happens in her office. That's why we all work in coordination all the time on helping people get the situation settled. So we always recommend a will. We always recommend power of attorney. And these are, pay a lawyer or get some help outside to have these documents drawn in advance. Once they're passed, it's too late. So my daughters have a will, and they're 45 and 40, 45, 47. So it's never too early to take care of things, because if I evaporated today, this won't happen to my children because I've prepared for it, and you can't be too young for that. So I hope that's helpful on probate, but again, anybody interested in more can go to the clerk's office or live chat us, and whatever that they want to do to get more detail. I mean, I don't want to go into the whole legal thing because that's like wear everybody out and it's boring at some point. But it's mainly the fact that we tax in arrears. someone passes and the bill due now can get dropped through the cracks with someone who passes away who's handling the estate. And that's really the trick bag right there.
Right.
Okay. Delinquent real estate.
Yes.
Talk about that. Okay.
Yes. I get asked about that so much. Yeah, and I've had clients that say, you know, don't it says I have to go to the courthouse steps for this auction, and so many things like that.
Well, and that is a common thing, and it does eventually if certain things don't happen. There are 6 months, 12 months, 3 years. There's many timings, and I won't go into all that because that's, again, kind of a boring thing. But here's what happens. When somebody does not pay their real estate taxes the second year in a row. Now, remember, the first year, we've called them, we've written them, we've been in the paper, we've put them on our website, we've like everything but called their mama. We've done everything to try to get pay, you know, so because we don't want it to go to the Commissioner of State Lands, Tommy Land, who's a friend. They do a great job, but we relinquish the right to collect the money after 2 years.
Okay.
So we really, what we call certified, assign it. We delegate that batch of parcel numbers to the Commissioner of State Lands. His constitutional duty is to go through the multiple processes, and they can include, oh my gosh, I just won the lottery. I don't want to lose my home. They go to the land commissioner's office, pay their back taxes. Then the commissioner sends it back to us, and it's back on our books. Everybody's happy. School gets their money, da 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 da. In the unfortunate case where someone doesn't win the lottery, or maybe there's a divorce, or maybe there's a death, or there are so many scenarios. There's even mental illness, there's dementia, there's nursing home. I mean, there's so many really unfortunate cases that it gets sent over out of neglect, and it's not always poverty. It's some kind, it is neglect for a legitimate reason. We have no forbearance in the law. The process must go on. So we, even at the 2-year mark, we notify the the owner of the real estate. Listen, if you'll pay me 1 year, just one, I won't send it up to the state. Get me caught up, and you won't be 2 years down. You'll be 1 year down. What happens? I don't have to certify it. Number two, the person keeps their home longer and maybe has another opportunity to have the money to do this with, or get refinanced, or get a mortgage, or whatever. Number three, that 1 year of taxes comes over to my other job, which is the Treasury. And then we get to do the calculations and send that money to the Forestry Commission and Children's Hospital and Central Arkansas Library. So it's a cash flow situation, and it's a win-win for everyone. So we really do work with the people that have gone 2 years. From October 15th to December 15th, we have a blitz that we are literally reaching out and saying, if you can just pay 1 year, because we certify to the commissioner December 15th. We've only got that 60-day window. I mean, we are hammering people. It's Thanksgiving, it's Christmas, and nobody wants to hear from us. But you know what? It does give some people an opportunity. I mean, we've had people that have garage sales. We've had, you know, all kind of things that go on. Sometimes the church takes a collection for an elderly person. I mean, you know, it really is kind of it's an opportunity I have in the law to save somebody another year on their home, on their real estate. Okay. After it's 2 years and after December 15th, and it goes to the land commissioner, what I want everybody listening and you to remember is on our website, PulaskiCountyTreasurer.net, very user-friendly. My 78-year-old husband can use my website. I promise you it's easy to use. We tested it with him in the first place. But if you wander around in there and find delinquent taxes, it's basically an Excel spreadsheet. You can click on amount, the most expensive delinquent property to the least expensive. You can click on name, parcel. You can find kind of whatever you want to find if you want to snoop around. And it's public information. I mean, anybody can go. In fact, we have people from other states that constantly are using our website looking for real estate in Pulaski County that's gone down. Now, there's a misnomer. Just because you pay somebody's taxes doesn't mean you own the property. Okay. We have that a lot. That people say, oh, they owe $300. I'm going to pay the $300 because we have to take money from anyone. We take money from people that do not own the property. We are required by law to receipt anything that shows up on a parcel. Now, we know who gave it to us, if anybody ever asked, but that comes up in delinquent sometimes because people will come in and say, well, I paid these taxes for 3 years. I should have a title now. No, doesn't work that way. At the commissioner's office, Tommy and his staff do publish the delinquent parcels in Pulaski County. There is a process they work on then that's called redemption. Somebody can come up with that money and redeem it, and they get their property back, like I mentioned earlier, and then it's back on our books, blah, blah, and everybody's happy. If that redemption doesn't happen, then they make notification to the legal address and name of the homeowner, or of the property owner, I should say. And then in due course of the law, that property will go for sale. For an example, they have a sale in every county every year. Well, not COVID, but they have a sale every year, and it's publicly known, and people can go bid. They can bid online. They can look and see. Used to be published in the paper, but more, it's all digital now. But the information's there if anybody wants to go take a look-see. They can go to the commissioner's office. They can call to see what remains. And there is also the misnomer that by the time it's gotten there, it's got to be a crappy property. That is not true. That is not true. There are people that die without heirs. There are people that things don't get handled. Or we've had some, and I kind of hate to say this, but there are some homeowners that have been incarcerated. They've gone to prison, and nobody's taking care. So just because it's there does not mean, or delinquent does not mean that it is not a property of value. Many of the parcels in, say, the incorporation of Little Rock have been bought for very little. They might have been a crack house. They might have been a homeless something. People will tear them down and build a nice little cottage there. So we've seen a lot of good things come. It's a process. I mean, it's not, you got to be patient, but it is something that certainly is worth pursuing. Somebody that's a bargain hunter or a DIY person. Does that help with the answer that you're looking for?
It does. I think there's a lot of legal background with it that we haven't touched on. I mean, I know of attorneys that do this, and that's how they've invested in real estate. And
yes,
very well.
We have multiple customers, member customers that are in the commercial rental or real estate business, and they know every nook and cranny about every lot every time the law changes. And they bid constantly because that's their market. That's what they do. It's a little harder for an individual, again, back to having a great agent, that they can learn the process, or maybe counsel with somebody who does this more on the legal side. You don't have to have a lawyer at all. I do recommend that you have an agent, a real estate agent, especially first time. There's nobody that's anybody's mother that helps them with this. This is, you're doing the right thing. This is the way you start. But the first place to go is look at the Commissioner of State Lands website, look at my website or Pulaski County Treasurer website, and even kick it around. And if you want to call our office or live chat our office and say, hey, 4107 Lakeshore, I don't know if they pay their property taxes or not. What's the status on that? We're required by law to tell you.
Yeah.
We'll tell you whatever you want to know. And have they ever paid? How long have they owned it? All this. You can get a wealth of information by just asking, and then you can kind of get to the next step. We have a full-time person who does nothing all day, every day. She's lovely. That works for the state land commissioner. And so Sarah is always my go-to. I'm like, hey, what about, I just drove by this house and nobody's mowed the yard in a year. What's the deal? So even I do that. I hope that's helpful to your folks.
I think so. I mean, there have been a few that have joined us. And so if you have any questions, please type them in the chat so that we can ask Debra your questions. And Debra, what is it that are misconceptions about the treasurer's office, misconceptions about taxes, and things that we just don't know that we need to know?
Well, we don't graduate from high school knowing anything about civic responsibility. So right off the bat, typically people sleep through the civics class. I did 50 some years ago because I didn't know I needed to know anything. I think the biggest misconception is that, say, for example, you and I chatted about, okay, my children all went through college or higher ed, and when they did, we rolled them out the car we helped them with, and then it's on them. You have to assess your vehicle. Single person working, trying to become an adult, do the adulting, they have to assess their vehicle by May 31. That's the assessor date, so they can then pay way down the road the next year. And I think that it's that first step that people miss. How do they know? Because their parents have been doing that for them all these years. And so it's, I think a fair question for any young adult is to say, okay, mom, now what do I need to do? Because they've been doing it.
Right.
And there are funny stories about all that, but that's one of the misconceptions is we don't know if you own a car. We don't know if you bought a RV or a motorcycle. I mean, our crystal ball is so foggy. We don't know those things. You have to declare in Arkansas that you own an asset.
Mm-hmm.
So there's that. The other thing is that we hear often, I don't have any children. I don't want to pay for public schools.
Mm.
And that is either folks that don't have children at all, or their children are grown and gone. And it sounds like a completely fair and legitimate question. And I get that. I mean, all of ours went to public education. But here's the deal. Somebody paid for your education.
Mm-hmm.
It's not free.
Mm-hmm.
Ask any school superintendent who cannot balance a budget for all the expenses.
Right.
Just ask them. I mean, it's millions, hundreds of millions of dollars. I mean, we started this year charged to collect $560 odd million. That's $500 million.
Mm-hmm.
And with 80% going to schools, I get it, but public education is a guarantee in our Constitution, and it's paid for by property taxes and people who own things. And that is a recurring expense. You own something for a year, you pay for the 1 year. You sell it, you don't owe again. But if you keep owning real estate and keep owning cars, you owe it. It's an annual tax. And people think if they have paid it once, why am I paying it again? It's the commitment that they have for owning, and not that anybody knows this in the back of their head, but it's the wherewithal in Arkansas of how we keep other taxes lower, because this is our mechanism. Florida, Texas, other places, they're all different, but ultimately you pay about the same amount of money. You just pay it in a different kind of tax.
I'm so glad you mentioned that, because obviously we're in an election season and we have people running for office who've discussed different tax structures.
Yes.
And so what does that look like? As possibilities of doing away with our income tax in our state. And then what will that do to our personal and our property taxes? Will it automatically shift them, or will we need a special election or Congress to vote that? Or what is it? What are we looking at?
Well, I'll be 71 next week. And in my lifetime, I do not anticipate any change on property taxes. This is ingrained in so many layers of our Constitution. But I will say this, when we're talking about property taxes, that's not the sales tax you pay on your Amazon delivery. That's not what you pay at Costco. That is a sale for the amount of the purchase you made. Now, property taxes are the assets you own. That's a different tax. When you go to a restaurant and you pay for your lunch, you're possibly paying a hospitality tax that's in that city. Little Rock's different than North Little Rock than Jacksonville. So those are things that have been voted on by that community for themselves. So to go to your direct question, that's the variety of things. But when you go to the idea of eliminating property tax, which has been discussed long before I was in the office for 22 years, it sounds like a great idea. Yeah, let's just drop that. Okay, well, if you don't have a mechanism to replace what goes to Children's Hospital, which is the county hospital, by the way, Arkansas Children's Hospital got that designation years ago. Walk through the parking lot of Children's Hospital. Do you really want to cut the taxes you paid at Children's Hospital? Go to the libraries and all of their outreach and their digital and all. Do you really want to shut all the libraries? I mean, there's not been yet in my tenure that a single legitimate idea to replace property taxes has been advanced, because we've cut property taxes on groceries back in the BP administration, Huckabee, on and on. So we've found some relief there for the general public, but in this particular way, nothing has come forward that's going to replace the, say, $400 million I collect a year for schools. Well, who wants a tax increase on state taxes or sales taxes? Nobody. But government isn't free. Everything we do costs money. We have sanitation, we have road and bridge, we have the coroner, for goodness sakes, who, and this is one thing that's a misconception, I think, Claire, and I so appreciate the audience to say this, but I use this example frequently. If you need the sheriff, we don't charge your debit card $500 for him to show up with his patrol car in his uniform with his gun, and he may be on overtime, and to pay for his boots and the gas in the car, et cetera, et cetera. We don't charge you $1,000 when you call the coroner. He shows up when you have a death in a nursing home, a hospital, whatever. He does crime scene investigations. You don't pay for that service at that time. And what we collect in taxes in aggregate that comes to the county, or again, to the Forestry Commission or the cities or whatever, the parks, the police and fire retirement, you pay all of that annually in your property taxes. And the disconnect for people to think, I shouldn't have to pay for this because I don't use it. Somebody paid for it for you. Like I said, you went to school free. Your parents didn't pay for your public education, nor did your granny or your auntie or whoever. But this is the way you pay back what you have already been afforded. 18 years of public education plus kindergarten in some places. So I think a misnomer might be that people aren't getting what they're paying for. Mm-hmm. I dare you to look at our budget and think that any corporation, any business, any small business owner, anybody trying to have revenue over bottom line expenses could possibly provide these services for less money than we are doing that. And I will add that multiple different for-profit jail services have come into Pulaski County. We have a 1,200 person jail, and they've tried to find a way to do it cheaper than we're doing it. Everyone has walked away.
So I'm really curious then, if everybody paid their taxes, what would the tax revenue be?
$560 million.
And so how much do we typically get every year?
When the current tax money's over October 15th, we get between 93 and 95% of that money, because 95% of the people are good citizens. Okay. And if they're in a mortgage company, their escrow pays.
Yeah, right. That's actually better than I thought.
Well, let me brag on my staff. It wasn't that way 22 years ago.
Okay.
We have used technology. We have added the PayPal, Venmo, e-check, credit card. We've tried to stay up with technology and make it easy. I mean, you can go to Walmart and pay cash. Mm-hmm. Okay. So we've tried to make it as easy as possible. And if there's any barrier, we even changed the law that once the books are open till October 15th, somebody can pay us. We have people on fixed income that pay us like $25 a month. Mm-hmm. You can pay all along the way. You don't have to pay it all at once. And that had been a barrier to people to actually forget the bill. It's October. They got to pay $400. They don't have it. They have to, scrounge or go delinquent. And the law requires we have to add a 10% penalty. Well, who's gotten a 10% raise in the last, 10 years? So 10% on that money, while it may be $40 on a $400 bill, it's like, why pay that? If we can get them to pay a little as they go, then we're helping them get into that 93, 95 percentile. And then, as I said earlier, between October 15 and December 15, we are dialing for dollars. We're calling on businesses. We are, we have a little script that people call and say, Mrs. Buckner has asked me to call you. Our records don't indicate that we received payment by the deadline. If it's lost in the mail, if you think you're paid, my name is Sally Jane. Call me at this number. So we really don't want people going delinquent. We really don't want them going to the land commissioner. It's because ultimately, as the treasurer, I want the money going where it belongs. And that's back to our 8 cities, 6 school districts, and all the other people that get the money.
And so, you know, like you were mentioning, many complain about a lot of different things. And then looking at where our dollars do go is so important. And there are so many efficiencies that we lose track of and we don't focus on. It's easier to focus on the negative. And, you know, we're in an election year, obviously, with our mayoral race as well. And so I want to focus on your county office. And do these dollars go towards county and city? Is that correct?
We remit to the cities, all 8 cities, the pro rata portion of the people in their area that pay. Even that is a matrix.
Right.
Because if you live in a certain area, all the money for you that is a millage that goes to your city, we have to have that identified and pass that through. Everything we collect by the end of the month, today's month end, and all that money will be in the hands of the cities by like the 10th of the next month. I mean, it's not a slow process.
No. And what is the current millage?
Well, you'd have to go to the website to look at it because I think we have 16 or 17 this year. So I don't want to misquote anybody, but I know they in the last cycle, they range from like 69 to 84. So, you know, it does vary, and I'm hedgepodging here a little bit because I don't want to misquote, but go to the website and see where you live or where you're looking for that. But, you know, the advance of technology has made this much simpler. This particular office in Pulaski is kind of odd because we are a conjoined office. In only 6 counties is the treasurer also the tax collector. So in 69 counties, you got 1 collector and 1 treasurer. And the collector does this and the treasurer does that and blah, blah, blah. But they conjoined this office in 95. I came in 01, so it was already conjoined to me. But we are charged with, again, taking the values from the assessor, applying the millage, billing everybody, chasing the payments, balancing the books, investing the money over on the treasury side, and then every month giving out the money that we collected to wherever it may go. And then once a year, we have to true up back to that $560 million. We start with a number, we have to balance to the penny. Now, just imagine.
I can't balance my checking account, much less that kind of budget.
Well, and we've got about 90,000 parcels and about $34 million back to that homestead credit. That's 1 parcel at a time. And we have to kind of be the homestead police a little bit and work with the assessor, because even some elected officials who were very high profile might have had a home in Florida or a home in Bella Vista or a home in Hot Springs, and they were claiming it on both homes, which is illegal. But frankly, if you live 6 months in one place and 6 in another, you think, well, but the truth is, in sort of a ethical way, you have to choose which one. And so we get about $34 million back from the state on waiving taxes, you know, for that. So we do have a full-time person that does nothing. In fact, actually a person and a half that works with our disabled veterans. We do a great outreach to the disabled veterans. Many of them and their spouses don't know that they're tax exempt. So when they close on a home, they don't have to have accrual on the property tax. So we work closely with all the title companies on that factor, and agents. A lot of the newer agents don't know that. So we kind of get into that education. If you got a benefit coming, we want you to have it.
Absolutely.
So, yeah. Yeah.
You know, we have another question, and I'm really grateful for this question because this happens so much. And I have clients, friends, acquaintances that'll reach out and ask me things about this. And so I'm interested to hear your answer to this. So we have someone, her great grandmother gave her the deed to a property years ago, but they never officially transferred it through the state. Taxes, I know, taxes are paid each year.
Right.
How hard is it to transfer it into her name, and does that require an attorney?
Well, number one, sooner's better than later. Just FYI for all your future clients. And this person on the podcast, if there is an actual deed issued and it just never was recorded, go to the courthouse and record the deed. There is no transfer. Ownership goes from absolute ownership to absolute ownership. There is no transfer. So the deed from great grandmother to this person, and I'll talk about if it hadn't happened, but if that deed exists, it's been laying in a lockbox, she had it in a file, then all she's got to do is go record it. And I don't know, maybe.
Does it matter if this grandmother has passed away?
Well, but if it was a legitimate deed at the time.
Okay.
Okay. So, it's still, well, I'm not an attorney, so I won't speak completely about that. But my understanding is that the deed recorded, if there's been no lien filed against it, if there's been taxes paid, if there's nothing clouding the ownership,
Right.
I got to caveat that, because if, I don't know, maybe the property didn't get mowed and Little Rock's filed a property tax lien for mowing the yard or something. I mean, you don't know. But if this has been a year, or if it's been 10 years, if it is in any way clouded from anything, I mean, she can contact the clerk's office, or I think look on her website and see if there's anything filed against it. If not, from my understanding, a deed could just be recorded. Now, if I'm wrong, which I am from time to time, what I would suggest you do is ask an attorney that question to verify that I either know what I'm talking about or I don't, because I wouldn't want somebody to do it in error. But if nothing's been going on the property, I don't think that well, what I'm thinking of is when my mother died, she had issued a deed to her 4 children. It was held at her lockbox. And when she passed, we went to close, we sold her home. That was presented, and that's how we closed on the sale, is because she had deeded ownership to us, but it had not been recorded. And it went straight through because it was legit. But it wasn't done until she had passed, because we didn't even know she had that. And that was the way that she helped us back to not going to probate.
Right.
So
yeah. I'm going to follow up with an answer for that and say that if you have questions or anything like that, I'd really suggest getting in touch with a title company that you trust.
Yes.
And they can do all this for you.
Well, and also, I just had the recall, Ms. Hollingsworth, Clerk Hollingsworth, she has, I think once a week, once a month, I don't remember all the dates, where you can call and ask anything for free.
Oh, nice.
So tell your contact to tell Terry Hollingsworth that I said for her to call her, and hopefully we can get some information for this lady. But the main thing is, we sure don't want anything to happen to her. We got to get that ownership moved. Have to get that moved.
Yeah. And there's details we don't know. And so if the deed was just literally handed to you but not signed and put in your name, then there's another process for that.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah. Again, a title company will be able to help you with that. So will the clerk's office.
Yes.
Any other questions?
But thank you for paying the taxes all these years.
Right. Absolutely. Yes, absolutely. So does anybody else have any questions for the fabulous Debra Buckner? But I so appreciate you being here with us today, Debra. You've been in office for how many years now?
Well, this is year 22, and I'm so thankful that the citizens of Pulaski County did not have anybody run against me. So actually, I'm going to be here for at least 4 more starting in January. And I'm thrilled. We love what we do. We take public service real seriously. And if you feel like you can make any kind of a difference, you're just motivated by that. We've met some fantastic people and helped some people, and it's really a rewarding thing. And those 57 people that really run that office, they're committed to quality. And I'm going to give you my work phone number.
Okay.
If anybody wants to call my office, I may be in and out or doing things like this, but the number for me personally is 501-340-8680. And I will personally see to whatever somebody needs to happen.
That is amazing. Thank you so much, Deborah. Is
Very
there
welcome.
anything else that we all need to know about?
Well, May 31's coming up. Get your assessment done. Don't let the assessor charge you 10%. And by all means, pay your taxes and know that you are getting your money's worth.
Definitely. And I love that. I mean, yes, hopefully the children we educate will help pay for our Social Security one day. Right? Absolutely. And, what you touched on as far as, we don't know what we don't know. And my parents had always done my assessment and my tags until I moved out of the house. And as soon as I moved out, I got married, and I had a husband that took care of all that. And then when he left, I had no idea. And then my tags expired and I got pulled over. And then when I went to go get them renewed, they're like, ma'am, you've got to assess. And I'm like, oh, what's that? Oh, well, then you owe taxes. And I was like, what? And they're like, for 2 years. I'm like, excuse me? Yeah. So you're talking to someone who has experienced all of this in the worst form. So I was that girl, but we don't know what we don't know.
Exactly.
I think one of the best things you can do is empower your children,
Yes.
teach them and take them along with you. And so, it's just like teaching them the whites and the darks and the laundry. This is one of those things. Nobody wants to talk about death and taxes, but we have to equip them with it.
Well, this is, I'll say quickly, I know we need to both go, but one thing I do want to say is, many people take their children to vote.
Yes.
They learn the voting experience, and that's say every 2 years, 4 years, depending. This is annually. So if they will take their children, or at least talk with their children about this, they won't have that horribly scarring and painful experiences that you've had.
Yes, no, I only learned through failure in my life. Everything I have ever done or succeeded in has only come through falling flat on my face. That's it, 100%.
Well, I'm here to keep you right, standing upright. So
yeah, I need someone to text me every May 31st. That's it. Thank you all so much for being here. Debra Buckner, you're a joy and a delight and full of fabulous information. And I so appreciate you for helping my world go round.
Oh, this was a blessing and a privilege. And y'all pay your taxes now.
Yes, ma'am. You have a great day.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.